My name is Rachel Monroe. I was 35 years old when my parents vanished the week before Thanksgiving. For 6 days, they didn't answer the phone. My mother didn't reply to texts. My father didn't return voicemails. And when I finally drove to their house, I found the front door unlocked, the Thanksgiving table half set, the kitchen smelling like spoiled food, and both of their cars still sitting in the garage. At first, I thought I was about to find a body. Then I heard crying, a weak, broken sound coming from my parents' bedroom. I followed it with my heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. And when I opened their closet door, I found a baby lying on a folded blanket beside a diaper bag, a birth certificate, and a crumpled note that said, "Don't let them give him away." That was the moment I understood something was very wrong. But I didn't know yet that the baby belonged to my married brother. I didn't know my parents had been hiding him to protect the family name. And I didn't know that by Thanksgiving night, the same family who always called me dramatic would be begging me to stay quiet. The Monroe family had one rule: don't make us look bad, not don't lie, not don't hurt people, not don't abandon a child, just don't make us look bad. My mother, Linda Monroe, believed reputation was a kind of religion. She polished the family image the way other people polished silver, carefully, obsessively, and always before guests arrived. My father, Charles, was quieter, but not softer. He had a way of making silence feel like a locked door. And then there was my older brother, Brandon, the golden son, the successful one, the one whose mistakes were always misunderstandings, whose selfishness was always stress, whose lies were always complicated situations. Brandon was 38, married to a woman named Melissa, and worked in commercial insurance. He drove a black SUV, wore expensive watches, and spoke to waiters like they were furniture. My parents called him ambitious. I called him exactly what he was: a man who had never had to clean up after himself because my parents always arrived first with a mop. I was different, not better, just different. I became a social worker, which my mother treated as if I had chosen a life of unpaid emotional labor just to embarrass her. At family dinners, she introduced me with a smile that always came with a small cut. "This is Rachel. She works with troubled families," as if I collected broken people for a hobby. What she hated most was that my work taught me to notice things. The child who didn't speak when a certain adult entered the room, the parent who answered too quickly, the bruise explained before anyone asked, the locked bedroom, the missing paperwork, the story that changed just slightly the second time. My family hated that about me. They said I looked for problems, but the truth was simpler. Problems were usually already there. I just didn't step around them. The previous Thanksgiving was when they officially named me the family problem. We were all at my parents' house, same dining room, same white candles, same turkey my mother always overcooked while pretending it was perfect. Brandon and Melissa were sitting across from me. My parents were at opposite ends of the table, like judges in a trial where I had already been convicted. The conversation turned to Brandon's new promotion. My mother glowed. "My son has always known how to lead," she said. Brandon smiled modestly, which meant not modestly at all. Then Melissa said something small, almost nothing. "He's been working late a lot." It was not an accusation. It was a wife trying to sound casual while holding something heavy. Brandon's fork paused. My mother jumped in immediately. "That's what responsibility looks like, sweetheart." Melissa nodded, but her eyes stayed down. I watched Brandon. He was not tired. He was irritated. There is a difference. Later, while my mother was clearing plates, I saw Brandon's phone light up on the sideboard. A message preview appeared. "Please don't ignore me. You said you'd help with the baby." I looked away immediately. I had not touched his phone. I had not opened anything, but I had seen enough to know there was a problem. After dessert, when Brandon made a joke about Melissa being clingy lately, I said quietly, "Maybe you should go easier on her." The table went still. Brandon leaned back. "Excuse me? She's clearly upset." My mother set down the coffee pot too hard. "Rachel." "What?" "Don't start." "I'm not starting anything." Brandon laughed. "You always think you're detecting some crisis." "No, I said. I think people deserve not to be mocked when they're hurting. My father sighed. That sigh meant I had broken the rule, not by being wrong, by making the room uncomfortable. My mother's face hardened. Then she said the line she would repeat for a year. Rachel ruins every family gathering because she can't keep quiet. Brandon smiled. Some people confuse honesty with needing attention. Nobody defended me. Melissa looked like she wanted to, but she didn't. I left that night with leftovers wrapped in foil and shame sitting in my chest like a stone. After that, invitations became thinner. Texts became shorter. Family news reached me last, and whenever I asked a question, my mother said, "Please don't turn this into one of your investigations." So I stopped asking. For a while. The week before Thanksgiving, my mother became unreachable. That was not normal. Linda Monroe lived for Thanksgiving. She started planning seating arrangements before Halloween. She sent group texts about side dishes with the intensity of a military commander. She cared deeply about who brought what, but not because she needed help, because control made her feel safe. On Monday morning, she texted me, "Dinner is at 4 Thursday. Please don't bring anything complicated." That was her way of saying I could bring rolls. I replied, "Do you need me early?" No answer. That evening I called. No answer. Tuesday, I called again. Nothing. I texted my father. No response. I texted Brandon. He replied 3 hours later. "They're probably busy. Stop spiraling." That was Brandon's favorite word for concern. Spiraling. Wednesday morning, I called my mother again. Straight to voicemail. By Wednesday night, something in my stomach had gone cold. I had seen too many cases where silence was the first warning. So Thursday morning, instead of driving to Thanksgiving dinner at 4, I drove to my parents' house at 10. The neighborhood looked exactly as it always had. Quiet lawns, bare trees, a few paper turkeys taped inside windows. My parents' house sat at the end of the cul-de-sac. Brick, large, respectable. The kind of house people called beautiful because they never had to grow up inside it. Both cars were in the garage. That was the first bad sign. The second was the smell, not outside, inside. The front door was unlocked. I stepped in slowly. "Mom?" Nothing. "Dad?" The house answered with the low hum of the refrigerator. The dining room table was half set, plates stacked near the end, silverware laid out in uneven rows. 2 candles still in their plastic wrapping. In the kitchen, a bowl of peeled potatoes sat gray in cloudy water. A tray of rolls had hardened on the counter. Something in the trash smelled sour and sweet. I checked the downstairs bathroom, empty. Living room, empty. Office, empty. My father's reading glasses were on the desk beside an open envelope. I didn't touch it yet. I moved toward the stairs. That was when I heard it. A sound so faint I almost convinced myself it was a cat outside. Then it came again. A cry. Small, hoarse, exhausted. I froze. The sound came from upstairs, from my parents' bedroom. Every part of me became still, the way my body had learned to become still when entering dangerous homes at work. I climbed the stairs. "Hello?" Another cry. I pushed open my parents' bedroom door. The bed was made. The lamps were off. One dresser drawer hung open. A scarf lay on the floor. The crying came from the closet. My hand shook when I reached for the knob. I thought of a wounded animal. I thought of someone tied up. I thought of every terrible thing I had ever been trained to notice. Then I opened the door, and there he was, a baby, tiny, red-faced, wrapped in a pale blue blanket, lying on a folded comforter near my mother's shoe racks. For 1 second, I could not move. Then training took over. I knelt down, checked his breathing, checked his temperature, checked for obvious injuries. He was alive, dehydrated, hungry, furious in the weak way babies become furious when no one has come fast enough. "Oh, sweetheart," I whispered, "I've got you." Beside him was a diaper bag. Inside were formula, bottles, diapers, wipes, a small pack of baby clothes, and a plastic folder. On top of the folder was a crumpled note. "Don't let them give him away." Under the note was a birth certificate. The baby's name was Noah Grant. Mother, Tessa Grant. Father, Brandon Monroe. My brother's name. My married brother's name. Printed clearly on a birth certificate beside a baby my parents had left crying in their closet. For a moment, I simply stared. Then I picked up Noah and held him against my chest. He cried harder at first. Then he clung to the sound of another heartbeat. And I knew, before I knew anything else, that whatever had happened in that house, I was not calling my family first. I was calling for help. I contacted emergency services. Then I called my supervisor from the county office, even though it was a holiday. I explained the situation carefully. Infant found unattended. Unknown duration. Possible family concealment. Birth certificate present. Parents missing from residence. No immediate caregiver on site. I could hear the shift in her voice. Professional concern, not panic. That helped me stay calm. While I waited, I fed Noah a bottle from the bag. He drank like he had been waiting too long. Every few seconds, I looked toward the bedroom door expecting my mother to appear and explain. She did not. Police arrived first. Then a paramedic. Then a child welfare emergency responder I knew only vaguely from cross-agency meetings. The officer asked whether the baby was mine. No. Do you know whose he is? I held out the birth certificate. His eyebrows rose. Is Brandon Monroe here? No. Where is he? That's an excellent question. I gave statements. I showed the note. I explained that my parents had not answered calls for days. The officer walked through the house and found no sign of forced entry. No broken windows, no overturned furniture, no blood, no struggle, just absence. Careful absence. That bothered me more. People in danger leave chaos. People hiding something clean up selectively. And my parents' house looked selectively abandoned. The police asked if there were cameras. I pointed to the doorbell system. My father installed one last year. Do you have access? No. My parents do. The officer nodded. We'll request it. After Noah was medically checked, the emergency responder arranged temporary protective custody while locating the mother, Tessa Grant. I asked to ride along. My supervisor said no, not because she was cruel, because I was family adjacent to the alleged father and the case needed clean boundaries. She was right. I hated that she was right. So I stood in my parents' driveway while they placed Noah in the ambulance for evaluation. His tiny hand opened and closed against the blanket, and something inside me cracked. Not loudly, just enough to let rage in. I was still at the house when Brandon called. Not my mother, not my father, Brandon. His name lit up on my phone at 1:26 p.m. I answered without saying hello. What did you do? He demanded. That was his first sentence. Not where are mom and dad? Not are they safe? Not why are police at the house? Just, what did you do? I looked toward the front door, where an officer was photographing the hallway. What did I do? You went to the house. Yes. Why? Because our parents vanished for almost a week. They didn't vanish. Then where are they? Silence. Brandon, you need to stop talking to people. My grip tightened on the phone. A baby was in their closet. He inhaled sharply. There it was. Recognition, not shock. Recognition. Rachel, he said. And suddenly his voice softened into the version he used when selling something. You don't understand what's happening. I understand a baby was left alone. He wasn't left alone. I found him alone. That's not. His birth certificate has your name on it. The silence after that was long enough to become an answer. Then Brandon said, You need to come to dinner tonight. I almost laughed. Dinner? Yes. We need to discuss this as a family. No. We need to discuss this with authorities. His voice turned cold. You always do this. There it is. You find one piece of something and build a whole disaster around it. A baby in a closet is not a piece of something. You have no idea what that woman is trying to do to me. That woman, not Tessa, not Noah's mother. That woman. I closed my eyes. Where are mom and dad? They're safe. Where? They'll be home tonight. So they didn't vanish. They needed space. They needed space from the baby they left in a closet? Stop saying it like that. Like what? Like you want it to sound criminal. I looked back into the house, at the plates, at the spoiled food, at the closet where a baby had cried until his voice weakened. It sounds criminal because it is. Brandon's voice dropped. Come to dinner, Rachel. Don't make this worse. Then he hung up. For years, my family said I could not keep quiet. That day, for the first time, I was grateful they were right. I should have left the house then, but the officer said I could remain nearby while they finished documenting, as long as I didn't disturb anything. I stayed in the kitchen, staring at the gray potatoes, trying to understand how my mother had stood in that room, and decided reputation mattered more than a child breathing upstairs. That was when I noticed her old phone. Not her main phone. An older model she kept in the kitchen drawer for recipes and grocery lists. She used to complain that the screen was cracked, but she never threw it away because it still synced to some of her accounts. It was sitting on the charging stand near the coffee maker. Unlocked. The wallpaper was a picture of Brandon and Melissa at their anniversary dinner. Of course it was. I did not dig through it blindly. I called the officer over. This may have synced messages, I said. He bagged it properly, but before the screen dimmed, one notification preview appeared, from an unknown number. Linda, I want my son. You can't hide him until Brandon decides what story he wants to tell. The officer saw it too. His expression changed. The phone went into evidence, but the sentence stayed in my head. You can't hide him. Until Brandon decides what story he wants to tell. That was my brother's entire life, reduced to one line. Everyone waiting while Brandon chose the least expensive truth. By late afternoon, I went home. I did not go to Thanksgiving dinner. There was no dinner yet. There was a crime scene disguised as a holiday. At 4:03 p.m., my mother texted the family group chat. Dinner is still at 6. There has been a misunderstanding. Rachel is emotional. Please do not engage with gossip. I stared at the message. Emotional. Gossip. A baby had been found in her closet, and my mother was still arranging the room. A minute later, Brandon wrote, Everyone please come. We'll explain calmly. Then Melissa texted, Explain what? No one answered her. I sat at my kitchen table for a long moment. Then I changed clothes, not into something festive, into something steady. Dark pants, gray sweater, flat shoes. I printed the photos I was allowed to keep from before evidence collection, the note, the birth certificate, the diaper bag contents. I wrote down the timeline while it was fresh. Then my supervisor called. Tessa Grant has been located, she said. My breath caught. Is she safe? She is scared, but safe. And Noah? At the hospital for observation. Stable. I pressed my palm against my eyes. Did Tessa know where he was? She says Brandon's parents took him to help while legal arrangements were discussed. Then they stopped answering her calls. Legal arrangements. That meant adoption, or something pretending to be adoption. My supervisor continued, Rachel, do not go to that dinner looking for a confrontation. I'm going because they'll blame me if I don't. They'll blame you either way. I know. Then go because you're prepared. I looked at the folder on my table. I am. At 6:11 p.m., I walked into my parents' house for the second time that day. This time, it was full of people. My parents had returned. My mother had changed into a cream blouse and pearls. My father wore a navy sweater. Brandon stood near the fireplace with a drink in his hand. Melissa sat stiffly on the sofa, pale and confused. Her parents were there too, which told me Brandon had expected to perform innocence in front of witnesses. 3 cousins, an aunt, my Uncle Paul. Everyone quiet in the strange way people are quiet when they smell smoke, but don't see fire yet. My mother saw the folder in my hand. Her eyes narrowed. Rachel, she said, I hope you're not here to make a scene. I looked at the dining room table, fully set now, as if the morning had never happened, as if a baby had not been crying upstairs. I'm here because Brandon asked me to come. Brandon walked toward me. Good, he said. Then maybe we can all take a breath. Melissa stood. What is going on? Brandon turned to her with a soft smile. Mel, please sit down. No. I want to know why there were police here. My mother stepped in. There was a misunderstanding involving a child. A child? Melissa said. Her voice cracked on the word. I looked at Brandon. Tell her. His jaw tightened. Rachel, tell your wife. My father said, this is not helpful. I turned to him. No. Helpful would have been answering the phone before I found a baby in your closet. The room went dead quiet. Melissa took one step back. What baby? Brandon said quickly. Rachel found a baby that belongs to someone I used to know. Melissa stared at him. Used to know? My mother said, this young woman has been unstable. I felt my hands go cold. There it was. They had already chosen the story. Tessa was unstable. I was emotional. Brandon was complicated. And Noah was inconvenient. My mother looked at the room and said, Rachel broke into our house and built a story around something she doesn't understand. I used my key, I said. You had no right to involve police before calling family. There was an unattended infant. There was a private situation. There was a child alone in a closet. My mother's face tightened. Stop saying that. Brandon slammed his glass down. This is why nobody trusts you, Rachel. You always need to be the hero of a disaster you created. There it was. The old script. The familiar role. Rachel ruins dinner. Rachel asks too many questions. Rachel makes everything ugly by naming what everyone else is willing to hide. I looked at Melissa. She was shaking now. Is the baby yours? She whispered. Brandon did not answer fast enough. That was answer enough. But my family had trained itself to survive pauses. My father stood. Everyone needs to calm down. I nodded. You're right. I walked to the television. My mother followed me with her eyes. What are you doing? What I should have done years ago. I connected my phone. The screen lit up. My hands were steady. That surprised me. First, I showed the birth certificate. Baby, Noah Grant, mother, Tessa Grant, father, Brandon Monroe. Melissa made a sound like she had been hit. Brandon said, that document is not the whole story. I clicked to the next image. The note. Don't let them give him away. My aunt covered her mouth. My mother said, you have no right to display private documents. Private? I said. You left him where coats and shoes belong. Then I played the voicemail my supervisor had cleared me to document from Tessa's statement summary. Not the whole thing, just enough. Tessa's voice came through the speakers, young and terrified. Linda, I want my son. You can't hide him until Brandon decides what story he wants to tell. Melissa turned toward Brandon. You knew? Brandon's face twisted. She was trying to trap me. With your child? Melissa said. He looked around the room, searching for someone to rescue him. My mother tried. She wanted money. I clicked again. Receipts. Payments to an adoption attorney, consultation fees, draft paperwork, no consent filed from Tessa, no legal transfer. Just planning. Then I showed a screenshot from the doorbell footage police had already recovered and released into the case summary shared with involved parties. My parents leaving the house 2 days earlier, 2 suitcases. My mother locking the door, my father carrying his garment bag, timestamp visible. The baby had already been inside. My father's face went gray. My mother gripped the back of a chair. I looked at them. You didn't vanish. No one spoke. You left. Silence. You left him there and waited for Brandon to decide what lie was easiest. My father sat down slowly. Brandon snapped. That's not what happened. I looked at him. Then explain it. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. Because lies need air. And I had taken the room's air away. My mother's voice shook, but not with guilt, with anger. We were trying to prevent a scandal. Melissa laughed once. It sounded broken. A scandal? My mother turned to her. Melissa, sweetheart, you don't understand what this woman was going to do to your marriage. Melissa stared at her. What woman? The mother of his baby? My mother flinched. Brandon said, Mel, please. She stepped away from him. Do not touch me. That was the first consequence, small, Immediate. Real. Then I closed the folder. I looked at my mother, then my father, then Brandon. And I said the words I had carried since the moment I opened that closet. You always said I ruined this family because I couldn't stay quiet. But silence is how you left a baby in a closet. Nobody moved, not even Brandon. For once there was no easy insult ready, no polished explanation, no family rule strong enough to cover the sound of what they had done. The rest of that Thanksgiving did not feel like a holiday. It felt like a building being evacuated before collapse. Melissa's father told Brandon to leave the room. Brandon refused. Melissa's mother called someone, maybe a lawyer, maybe her sister, maybe anyone not connected to the Monroes. My Uncle Paul stood up and said, "Linda, tell me this isn't true." My mother said nothing. That was new. My father walked into the kitchen and put both hands on the counter like he was trying not to fall. I followed him, not because I felt sorry for him, because I needed one final answer. "How long?" I asked. He did not pretend not to understand. "Rachel, how long did you know?" He closed his eyes. 3 weeks. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of planning. 3 weeks of pressure. 3 weeks in which my parents could have done the right thing at any time. "And the closet?" His face crumpled slightly. "Your mother thought it was temporary." Temporary. That word made my blood feel sharp. A child is not a suitcase. "I know." "No, Dad, you know now because people saw it." He looked at me then, and for the first time I saw fear. Not fear for Noah, not fear for Tessa. Fear that the family name would finally belong to the truth. "Rachel, this could destroy Brandon." I stared at him. There it was, even now. Even after everything. Brandon was still the center of the emergency. "Good," I said. He flinched. I had never said anything like that to him before, so I said it again. Calmer. "Good. Something should finally be stronger than protecting him." My father looked old in the kitchen light, but I had learned not to mistake age for innocence. My mother found me by the front door as I was leaving. "You are not walking out after doing this," she said. I turned. "Doing what?" "Destroying your brother's marriage, humiliating your father, exposing private family matters to strangers." I looked around the house, at relatives whispering, at Melissa crying quietly in the living room, at Brandon pacing like a cornered animal, at the dining room table with untouched food cooling under perfect lights. Then I looked back at my mother. "You still think the worst part is who found out?" Her lips pressed together. "You have always been jealous of Brandon." That almost made me laugh, not because it was funny, because it was so small compared to what had happened. "A baby was left alone in your closet." Her eyes flashed. "We were coming back." "When?" She looked away. "When Brandon had spoken to the attorney." I nodded slowly. "So when the story was ready?" She slapped me, harder than I expected. The room behind her went silent. For a second, my cheek burned and my vision blurred. My mother looked shocked at herself, but not sorry. I touched my face. Then I said quietly, "Thank you." Her mouth opened. "For what?" "For doing that in front of witnesses." And I walked out. The investigation did not disappear just because my family wanted it to. Tessa gave a full statement. She was 24, scared, exhausted, and much stronger than my family had counted on. She had met Brandon while working a temporary administrative job near his office. He told her he was separated. He told her he would help. He told her many things men say when they believe consequences are optional. When Noah was born, Brandon panicked. My mother contacted Tessa first, not to help, to manage. She offered money, then pressure, then an adoption attorney, then threats wrapped in concern. Tessa said Linda and Charles offered to watch Noah for a few hours while everyone calmed down. They did not bring him back. For 2 days, Tessa called. No answer. Then she sent the note through someone who knew where my parents lived. "Don't let them give him away." That note saved more than a baby. It saved the truth from being buried under my mother's version of events. Brandon's marriage unraveled quickly. Melissa filed for separation within the month. My parents hired attorneys and stopped speaking to most of the family. For a while, my mother sent messages through relatives. "You don't understand what you've done. Your father isn't sleeping. Brandon may lose everything." Families handle things privately. I did not answer, because families also call ambulances. Families answer the phone. Families do not leave babies in closets. Noah went home with Tessa under legal protection and supervision support. I saw them once, months later, at a supervised family services office. Tessa looked tired but steadier. Noah had grown rounder in the cheeks. He held a soft green toy and watched the room with serious eyes, as if he had already learned too much about adults. Tessa approached me carefully. "I never thanked you," she said. "You don't have to." "Yes," she said, "I do." I looked at Noah. He deserved someone to come. Her eyes filled. So did I. I had no answer for that, so I just nodded. Sometimes the truth is too heavy for comfort. Sometimes all you can do is stand near it and not look away. The next Thanksgiving, I did not go to my parents' house. There was no invitation. There was no apology. There were only rumors, legal updates, and the strange peace that comes when people finally stop pretending they love you in a way that protects you. I cooked for myself. A small turkey breast, mashed potatoes, green beans, store-bought pie, no seating chart, no speeches, no careful smiles, no one telling me I ruined the family because I refused to decorate a lie. At 4:17 p.m., my phone buzzed. My mother. For a long moment, I just looked at her name. Then I opened the message. "You destroyed this family." I read it twice. Not because it hurt the same way it used to, because it didn't. That was how I knew something in me had healed. I typed back, "No, I stopped protecting what was already destroying it." Then I silenced my phone and set it face down on the table. Outside, the sky was already dark. Inside, my little apartment smelled like food and quiet. For the first time in years, Thanksgiving felt honest. Not happy exactly, but clean. People think revenge is always about making someone suffer, but sometimes revenge is refusing to keep suffering for them. Sometimes it is calling the police before calling your mother. Sometimes it is holding a crying baby in a closet and deciding that blood does not matter more than safety. Sometimes it is letting a perfect family photo finally crack, because behind it was a child no one was supposed to see. My mother said I ruined every family gathering because I couldn't keep quiet. Maybe she was right. But that year, my silence would have cost a baby his mother, and my voice gave him back his name.